Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, okay, well, let's talk a bit about game keycards. We talked about the state of game collecting multiple times this year because it's just ever shifting. One part of that conversation was what Switch 2 was doing with game keycards. The other was just about scalpers, pricing. Like for us physical game gals and guys out there, it is very tough. So we just got a third-party showcase from Nintendo, and oh my gosh, it's raining game keycards here. Now, I think those of us who are paying attention and are honest with ourselves are not really surprised by this news at all. You just look at any stats around the games industry, and digital sales are leading. However, there's been a loud outcry for a while when it comes to physical games, and Nintendo proposed one of the most perplexing solutions we've seen before: game keycards. They're dumb to me because it includes the worst parts of both practices without solving any issues. Like if I want digital, then I want the benefit of, for example, not having to get off my couch to switch games. Like that's one of the key benefits, the conveniences of shopping digitally. Everything's right there. I don't have to get up. Instead, when you buy a game keycard, it's still a digital copy, but you got to get up and swap the cartridge still. If I want physical, it's because I want full ownership of the thing that I am buying. No downloads, like it's all there on that nice little red cart. And obviously, game key cards, it's the main reason we're here having this conversation, aren't doing that either. So it's just this weird in-between where you have game key cards that are minimal digital convenience and also have no game ownership. So I don't think really anybody wins with game key cards. Like I feel it was a moment Nintendo was trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Like, see, it's the thing. Like it's not a code in the box, so that's better. And if I'm fair, I guess you can resell these, unlike codes in the box. And to that, at least when you buy it and you add it to your collection, if you want to sell it on eBay, I don't know if game stores are taking them for trade-ins, but maybe you want to do it over there. Like there are ways to trade it to a friend. You can share it, and I do think that is a positive. That is probably the best thing to come out of it, but it's not nearly enough when both sides are kind of losing out on the convenience factors or the purchasing reasons that are usually lying within like digital and physical. Now, what sucks about game keycards to me is that it's killing my desire to buy third-party games on Switch. And maybe I'm the minority, but I still want to vocalize that because to me, that is what I loved about my first Switch. That's why I was driven to buy so many games on my first Switch. Why out of most of my collection, my Switch 1 is one of my biggest because it was always supporting physical games. And when it wasn't, it was made very clear with that download required tab at the top. But now things have changed dramatically. So we're going to dive deep into it. Why is this the case? What's happening now? What are some really bad examples of it? Some people will be held accountable today. And also, what's Nintendo doing about it? Because they seem to be looking into it. And is there a future where Nintendo offers other options? Or is it going to continue to be that moment where you go, oh my God, it's not a game keycard? What sucks, though, as I'll highlight with one of these examples, is sometimes, even if the label's not there, it's still a game keycard. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Rebound. If you're new here and you're into nostalgic or retrospective content or game collecting, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. So, I gotta call out one of my goats, the Trails series. I love me, the Legends of Heroes, and I cannot wait for the Sky remake, Trails Beyond the Horizon. Oh my God, both these games are going to be so sick. So, we have the Switch 2 version of Trails Beyond the Horizon coming out, and guess what? It's a game keycard. And there's a reason why these smaller games are putting themselves on game keycards. We'll talk about that in a second here. But when asked to explain this decision by Nintendo Life, the answer that was given out is, we decided to release this title as a game keycard on the Switch 2 as we believed it was the most beneficial option for our customers. Sure, let's keep going. Square Enix, they just announced Octopath Traveler 2. And yeah, like I am so excited for this game. Y'all know how much I love Octopath Traveler. They announced a new action RPG, The Misadventures of Elliot. Really excited for that one. I haven't even touched the demo because I know I'm going all in on that one, right? So I love what the HD 2D games are doing. It looks like Square has a ton more on the way because they created like a whole Twitter handle for it. So yes, don't get it twisted. Still ridiculously excited for Octopath Traveler 0 because it looks like it's this retelling and reworking of the mobile gacha game Champions of the Continent, which I refuse to touch because it's like, that's not what I'm here for with Octopath. However, one thing we learn about with Octopath Traveler 0 is that if you buy the Switch 1 version, it will be available on the cartridge. However, there is no upgrade path to the Switch 2 from that. And the Switch 2 version is a game key card. So now you got this situation where, for me as a collector, I kind of want to buy Octopath Traveler 0 on the Switch 1. But look, I know the benefits of the Switch 2. It looks better, it runs better. I love my Switch 2 from a power standpoint. It's been delivering on my backlog. So yeah, the last thing I want to do is go back to the Switch 1 SKU if I want to support physical games. So you know what ends up happening? I go and spend my money elsewhere. If they're going to support maybe more of a physical copy on, say, PS5, the verdict's still out on that, but let's say they are, I'm going to go buy it over there. And that's what keeps happening to me is I used to be automatic on my Switch 1. Like, yep, physical games supported, great. But now it's changing. Now I see these game key cards and I go, no, sorry, like I'll go buy this somewhere else. Because then if it's a digital only option, then I'll look at Steam or something like that. That's just much better to me. But the tricky part is now they're being hidden by some retailers. If you look at No Sleep for Konami Date, the newest entry in I, the Somnia Files, which I also want to play, by the way. I haven't even played Nirvana Initiative yet, but that game also looked awesome. But when you go to buy this game on Target, you'll see there is no game keycard tab here. So for me, beautiful. Okay, that's an easy purchase in the Switch 2, especially visual novel style game. Easy, right? Wrong. Actually, if you go to the official website for the game, they have in bold, please note, the Switch 2 physical version will be released as a game key card. And keep in mind, the image that I just showed you was the Switch 2 version of this game. Sometimes it's easy just to overlook it. You know, you kind of go on autopilot and you just don't compute like Switch 1 version versus Switch 2 version. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, now it's getting a little sneaky. There are bright spots, right? Like, I was so happy to not see the game keycard tag on Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm really happy to see Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which looks awesome, is going to have the full game on the 64GB cartridge, as confirmed by their Q&A. It'll be a full $70, but for me, I'm more than willing to pay the extra scratch if that means I get to own the thing that I am paying for, especially when we went through stop killing games and these games disappearing forever. The thing we are fighting for is, yes, the obscure, ancient, I want to own the thing I bought. Like, that is that simple, but then Stop Killing Games as an initiative starts up and it points to games and how they're going away forever. And I think that's problematic because there's so many different examples of it. You can look at Activision's run of the Marvel games. They're basically gone for good unless something gets reactivated there with the license deal. You want to talk about Nintendo, the 3DS eShop is gone. Even bad games like Anthem are going away soon, and I feel like that's history that you could show a student who's studying game development, one of design or art, and they can learn lessons from these games, sometimes positive lessons from someone else's failure. When we just bury that history and you can't lay your hands on it, you can't touch it, see what it is, I just feel like that is a foolish mistake because we're just doomed to repeat our mistakes as time goes on in this game's industry. But why are we doing this? Why are we still stuck on game key cards? Well, it all comes down to what I imagine most of you already would have guessed. It's finances. There's only one cartridge type, as we covered already here on Retro Rebound. It's a 64GB cartridge. There's no alternative. That's the problem, is you'll see the sea of games that are game key cards are ones that make you kind of scratch your head a little bit, because usually when we see the digital option, it's because the game is too big. That was established with the Switch 1. Like, you see a game that's pushing the power or just not really optimized at all, whatever it may be, that game usually requires a download, or the publisher just didn't care and just wanted to sell you a code in the box and save a little money. But with the Switch 2, there's only a 64GB option. So what you have are developers, like we'll use Trails as an example. That game, you know, I'd be surprised if that game pushes past 20GB, maybe 30 if we're lucky, you know. But when it's been stated that the cost of a Switch 2 cartridge is $17 for companies to put their games on. And by comparison, while these numbers aren't official, the Blu-ray discs are much lower, like some even saying $2 to $4 per disc. So simply put, game keycards have become a cheaper way to put out games for the Switch 2 and maximize how much you make per copy. And it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, when you get a multi-year-old port, I mean, you could maybe get all that on the cartridge, it sounds like, but you might be charged full price like Cyberpunk kind of did. Like, here you go, it's all on the cart, full price, Ultimate Edition, but this game is like from 2023 if you want to include the DLC, but Cyberpunk itself, the base game, excluding its updates, is a 2020 game, and I paid full price for it. I mean, I guess that's the benefit of being a third-party seller on Switch. You have users who are dedicated to that ecosystem and will pay that full price. So what's Nintendo really saying about all this is the question after this. Nintendo is actually gauging player opinions on the Switch 2 game key cards in Japan. Now, this is a website I couldn't translate, so we're going to run with VGC here, but they say, as reported by Switch Soku, Nintendo has sent Japanese players a survey to gauge their awareness of game keycard system and if it affects the way they purchase games. The survey first asked participants if they're aware of game keycards, and then follows this up by asking if the user is aware of the characteristics of game keycards, such as their requirement for players to download game data and that the card must be inserted in order to play. Finally, the survey asks if the participant would rather purchase a game keycard or a digital download version, and I find this to be very enlightening because the difference between Nintendo and, say, a Microsoft or a Sony is that those other two had their hands in a bunch of other cookie jars, but Nintendo's a primary gaming business. They make all their dollars and cents off games, right? Like, it starts with the game. Of course, now it's branching out to movies and theme parks and all that stuff, but it starts with video games. And so they, outside of everyone else, should have the most vested interest in accommodating all gamers. At least you'd hope so. I'm not sitting here telling you, oh, they're going to change things, but it's not even just, oh, they're asking their fans, hey, what do you think? I also look at what's happening with their investors. Just earlier this month, Nintendo was asked about game key cards by shareholders. This is from gamesindustry.biz, and they write, shareholders expressed apprehension regarding game key cards in which the cartridges act as keys to unlock a download rather than storing the game. Skipping a little to the bottom, it says, in response to investors, Furukawa said Nintendo will continue to work closely with publishers to support the various distribution methods offered on the Switch 2. This is one of the new software distribution methods we have introduced to accommodate the larger game data sizes on Switch 2 compared to Switch. Software can be released in various formats and will continue to work closely with software publishers on many fronts to ensure that they actively support our platform. So looking between the survey and then the shareholder statements, I kind of come back with this. Some people are wondering if this is going to cost Nintendo money, and in turn, is it going to cost the shareholders money? If that's the case, maybe an adjustment needs to be made. The other question, which Nintendo is likely looking into with their partners and less with their fans, is will the difference be enough to go out and do a 32 gigabyte option, a 16 gigabyte option, providing more options on these cartridges for developers? Will there be a big enough difference in sales if they provide those sorts of options? Will physical game purchasers step out and support things and move that bottom line in a direction where it makes it worth getting into? That's where it gets complicated, because to me, I'd love to say yes, but when you're in the minority, and I say this again, knowing as a physical consumer, like, I'm a dying breed out here, baby. So if I am in that minority, even if all of us show up, will that move the needle enough? It's really tough to say. But I feel like if you're Nintendo, and third-party was a big part of the Switch 1 appeal, because look at the Wii U and what happened when Nintendo wasn't getting third-party support. That totally doomed the system, even if the exclusives were great. It all has to come together into a complete ecosystem. Not saying that's what's happening here with the Switch 2. Third-party is supporting, but is it affecting sales on third-party? Are a lot of people like me and saying, game key card, I'm going to go over here instead. Or I'm going to buy it digitally on Steam instead, because that's not the physical copy. If that is starting to affect them, I actually think they would make an adjustment. It's foolish to fully hope so, but I do feel like there's enough question asking and research being done where they're looking into other options. Will it be our ideal options? No one really knows. And if it does happen, it'll be a while down the road here. But this seems to be a little bit of an in-betweener option for companies to port their games over and make maximum dollar like they would on, say, a PS5. So Nintendo's able to get third party to support their system. That's really all they care about. Now they might try to figure us out a little bit more. We'll see if they make any adjustments. They might even study the data of the Switch 1 and see how third-party sales were there when it was all physical. You know, it's really tough to say, but Nintendo definitely benefits from more physical sales than other companies out there, which is why, again, I feel they are at least inclined to investigate. If they make a change, I wouldn't be totally stunned, but also I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, this is an old man just shouting at a cloud here, but I want my physical games. Like, to me, it is such a gut wrencher to know a series I care deeply about in, say, Octopath Traveler, the newest entry. It's just, what, I'm just gonna buy it digitally? Like, I don't know, man. It just feels wrong. It feels wrong. Like, I want to own these things I care about. I understand there are some examples where it starts digitally, it's an indie game, and maybe you crawl your way to limit run, those sorts of things, sure. But this is just, I don't know. It's just such a bummer to see how it's gone, and I get the business side of it, but I hope there is a way to figure it out. So I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring, have a conversation about game collecting here, as I usually do, see what you all think about it, and just try to do our part to maybe push things forward, create a little noise, because the noise seems to be working enough to get investors asking questions, getting Nintendo sending out surveys. No immediate action, but some things happening, some things brewing. So we'll see. Let me know your thoughts. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Retro Rebound, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.